In the context of TRT, especially injectable testosterone, where the ester is attached to the testosterone molecule to be cleaved in the liver, which is dysfunctional, it will disrupt the liver detoxification process, leading to decreased clearance of xenobiotics, as well as reducing the conversion of T4 to T3. So, this obesity and insulin resistance is a really big one, especially in the United States. And this can be measured via a variety of tools or blood tests, whether it's your body fat percentage, your fasting insulin, your HbA1c, ideally all of these things together. Triglycerides is also helpful as a multifactorial panel and a situation to look at in determining if insulin resistance is pathological. So further markers of dysfunction in this area can be elevated hemoglobin and hematocrit even when well hydrated, hypertension, so high blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, as I said, elevated prolactin, sleep apnea, depression, anxiety. Being overweight causes varying degrees of insulin resistance depending on how overweight you are. And what this does ultimately, from a very simplified and layman's perspective, is that it interrupts the body's ability to burn glucose for energy, as well as tapping into stored body fat for fuel when the liver becomes fatty in particular. This creates an internal state of biological chronic stress. When we often talk about stress, we talk about psychological stress. We talk about relationships or work or not sleeping enough or having a lot of shit going on. But if the body is biologically stressed in the sense that it cannot access and utilize energy properly from glucose at a cellular level, this causes an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system. So basically, your body's stressed all the time because doing basic stuff is more difficult than it should be. And when you have this constant state of the body struggling all the time to generate and utilize cellular energy just to do basic stuff, this becomes like a death by 1,000 cuts thing. It becomes a big problem over time. So what this leads to, in terms of if people want to get into the nerdy stuff, is further imbalances in the GABA and glutamate pathways, a resistance to dopamine, reduced production, synthesis, and increased reuptake of dopamine. And then ultimately what you end up experiencing is this chronic state of low mood with heightened stress and anxiety. It's not a fun time. So it's really important to look at proper education around nutrition, around exercise, around stress management, around self-care. You need to know how to do these things and how important they ultimately are. And it's crucial that people understand this key point that I've said before, and I'm going to keep saying it, is you need to understand how you got off track so that you can understand how to get back on track and how much work realistically it's going to take to fix this issue. I constantly see maintenance effort with the expectation of transformational results. So it is integral that people understand how much support and how much compliance is needed in these overall areas. You've kind of got to do everything to improve your overall holistic, and I know that word gets kind of a little bit of a bad rap because it's been bastardized, but holistic meaning the human as a whole. You really have to work on everything and you have to do it consistently over time. It's also really important that providers test thyroid and DHEA, as well as other markers of chronic stress, especially if there's a lot of workplace stress. Things like shift work is a big one, or intractable pain from injuries. DHEA and thyroid replacement absolutely will expedite and facilitate the results of TRT if there is a deficiency in these areas. I find phosphatidylserine 300 to 600 milligrams per day, as well as magnesium glycinate 400 milligrams twice per day can be extremely helpful in situations when that stressor, such as having toddlers, being in a shift work career, having an intractable injury, can't be resolved. Some people can't fix the stresses that they have to deal with. So we have to work with them. So NAC, 600 to 1200 milligrams twice a day, can also be very helpful for people with low mood and energy issues while the body fat is being reduced, because this improves the antioxidant balance and reduces the oxidative stress neurologically. Other things can be helpful, like mixed forms of vitamin E, ubiquinol. I like ubiquinol at 100 milligrams twice a day, and 2 to 4 grams minimum of EPA DHA per day can also be very helpful to bring the omega-3 index up to anywhere from an 8 to 12%. And this can help. This doesn't solve, this helps. Now, if someone is overweight, I am a big fan of the short-term use of metformin. Metformin is extremely beneficial for reducing a lot of the negative metabolic side effects from the hormone testosterone itself when the individual is obese. And this medication can then be withdrawn once the individual reaches an optimal healthy body fat percentage. Now, I'm going to come back to this liver disease issue, particularly around fatty liver.
If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below.
I have referred many clients back to their general practitioner or to their TRT doctor to have a liver ultrasound to diagnose and ultimately treat fatty liver disease. Now, this point has a bit of contention, and it has contention because the science is wrong, and I think it's wrongly applied. So if people disagree with this, you can disagree all you like. You can even make your own video rebuttal if you like, or you can come on the channel and debate me on it. I would love to have the discussion. I have seen research that suggests that elevated bilirubin has nothing to do with fatty liver disease. This is bullshit. And the reason why this comes up is that elevated bilirubin does not mean that you have fatty liver disease. It may mean that you have something called Gilbert syndrome. And Gilbert syndrome means that you have elevated bilirubin without the presence of fatty liver disease. I think that it is a extreme intrinsic lack of understanding around the liver, around bilirubin, around how the body actually works, to assume that someone has Gilbert syndrome without first doing an ultrasound to check to see if fatty liver is present. Ultrasounds are quick, easy, painless, very affordable. And if someone is at a risk factor for having fatty liver disease, either from obesity or high alcohol consumption, and there's elevated bilirubin, and especially if there's elevated GGT, and if there are side effects from treatment, if it's already been initiated, it is so important just to get the ultrasound. Test, not guess. Scans are very useful for ruling things out. So AST and ALT may be elevated, but not always. And AST and ALT can be elevated from a variety of things. They're not just elevated from liver issues. This is a very, very silly assumption that people make. But they can also be elevated from this, but GGT is often elevated with fatty liver. But when in doubt, just get the ultrasound. Now, NAFLD can be the root cause of insulin resistance and obesity, but it can also be caused by insulin resistance. And my hypothesis in 2023, and I stand by this, is that a long-term choline deficiency can also be a root cause for why some people will develop NAFLD, the non-alcoholic form, which precedes the obesity and insulin resistance developing. So NAFLD, or alcoholic fatty liver disease, will prevent insulin resistance from being resolved. And when I say prevent, you absolutely can lose weight with this condition. It's just much harder. Because what this condition does is it increases gluconeogenesis and it disrupts fatty acid metabolism. But in the context of TRT, especially injectable testosterone, where the ester is attached to the testosterone molecule to be cleaved in the liver, which is dysfunctional, it will disrupt the liver detoxification process, leading to decreased clearance of xenobiotics, including estrogen, xenoestrogens, and their metabolites, as well as reducing the conversion of T4 to T3. So while telling people simply to lose weight, yeah, that'll fix it, but it's not that easy. And it can be much more effective for people to actually treat the NAFLD rather than just trying to lose weight in spite of it. So NAFLD often will not resolve on its own, and it prevents the weight loss from occurring based on when the individual is exercising properly and eating at what should be a caloric deficit. Now, choline and inositol work very effectively over an 8 to 12 week period to clear fat out from the liver. I have worked with many clients on this. I am going to give credit to Dr. Rand McLean for making a video on this many years ago. And this absolutely does work in practice. Now, adding things like TUDCA, glutathione, NAC, all of these are helpful in supporting the dysfunction of the liver, but they don't correct the fatty liver itself. This is kind of like using a crutch for a broken leg. They will help support the fact that the leg's broken so that you can do leg-related stuff, but they're not actually going to purge the fat out from the liver. It's the choline and inositol together. So I recommend getting the Now Foods choline and inositol. It's a 250 milligram of each capsule. So 250 choline, 250 inositol per capsule, and using 4 to 6 capsules of this product twice per day for 8 to 12 weeks. And you can do this and have a follow-up liver ultrasound done afterwards to make sure all the fat has been eradicated. But it doesn't work if you continue to drink alcohol, if you continue to eat in a caloric surplus, if you continue not to exercise, if you continue to do stuff that's bad for the liver, your liver won't heal. It's kind of like if you have a broken leg. If you keep trying to run on it, it's not going to heal. So this is very effective. And if people get a bit of a digestive discomfort from this, it's not because the supplement is irritating your gut. It's because the fat is leaving the body in the form of, elimination. Fat, when it's warm, is liquid. The fat has to go somewhere to get out of your body. So the other thing that I want to add in, and it kind of blows my mind that this is something that I have to bring up all the time, because I have to bring it up all the time. If you've had your gallbladder removed, you need to replace the function of the gallbladder. If you remove the thing surgically, which needs to be removed due to a medical event, if you remove the thing that makes bile, you need to replace the bile that thing was making. If you remove a gland from the body, you need to replace its function. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem. And the problem tends to be a long-term thing. And when you lack bile production because you removed the bile-producing factory, you're not going to break down fats, and then you're not going to be able to absorb and assimilate fat-soluble nutrients. So adding 125 to 250 milligrams of ox bile for women, or 500 milligrams of ox bile with fat-containing meals for men, as well as a bioavailable fat-soluble nutrient complex to further support preventing a deficiency, is integral. And if you do not have a gallbladder, you need to replace the function of the bile. Many of the side effects that they experience when correcting this are due to the biological consequences of chronic inflammation. It's important to support and adjust the TRT and supplement protocol for the patient in terms of where they're at now, based on their different state of health at baseline. Daily injections actually do lead to a natural slight fluctuation in levels because of these